and Kasha's in the room, so she'd be angry if I didn't say, one of the elements of I always confuse the two, mission or vision, is it talks about meaningful partnerships. And so this is an example where we try to approach this with the school districts in that way, trying to find a solution that works for both sides to try to avoid the legal implications if we don't.
And I think most of us up here already know how it works, but there is such a misconception right now out there. Obviously, people are upset that I'm glad we're airing all this out so that people actually understand we are limited. Certain things we do have control over, but certain things we do not. So at least in my opinion, this is not a school board bashing session. It's just people, trying to educate people that there are certain tasks and certain roles that we each have. And by the way, I was going to ask Jonathan, can we make sure, I would personally like this video to be posted to our YouTube channel and our Facebook channel as well. That way, it's public and people need to know, and I'd like to have that list.
So just a couple more slides. This is the one where normally we would do an activity, but given the size of the school requests, we're going to skip it this year. But I wanted you to have a list of what is in the pipeline that we will need some direction from the board probably next calendar year in terms of where you want us to focus those dollars in 2026. And so you can see we have multiple library and active living center projects. We have multiple park projects that we can consider. And then there's a grouping of other capital projects. If you see anything that is missing from this list, let us know, but we think it covers most of the needs that have been identified.
What's the Chester Farm?
So Chester Farm is the property we bought in the northwest part of the county recently. Well, actually we haven't bought it yet, but it's under contract. And that would be the potential equestrian trail center down the road. Yeah. And you'll notice for each of those parks, some of those have not started at all. So St. Stephen's, Chester, we don't have any activation of those sites, whereas others, when they're listed, Frank Lisk, Rob Wallace, would be future phases of those park projects. And so we'll need your help prioritizing which one goes next when we get to 2026. So we did want to cover just briefly the PAYGO, and so you have mentioned earlier the $36 million that was transferred over, some of which has been set aside, reserved, or appropriated. And so at the end of the day, we believe going into this next year, we'll have about just under $26 million of available cash to fund projects from a capital perspective. In terms of what those projects are, this gives you a list of the county side of the equation. And I'm not going to speak to all of these. Kelly and Michael are much more informed about the details. But I will say, from what Kelly said this morning, I believe we can remove $1 million, which is the traffic improvements at the landfill. We think we've got an alternative solution to that. So that makes the available balance as we move into this fiscal year about $18.4 million. And typically, once we've taken care of the county needs, that funding would be usually either reserved or allocated to the school systems for their capital needs and avoid issuing debt for those projects. And so this would go to their deferred maintenance, or it could go to offset some of the construction costs for their projects. And so I'm not going to read through the list, but if there's anything on that list that you want more detail on right now, Kelly, Michael, or myself can answer those.
So ADA bathroom renovations at Governmental Center, is that something we have to do or something that would be good to do, or what's our status on that?
We do have to do it. There's
what I
not
thought.
necessarily a specific time frame. We're in the process of completing the third one, and so this would be the final one in the Government Center that would make it compliant with ADA requirements now.
And because it's a public government building, we're required.
Correct.
Yeah,
We have a whole list of projects through the years that such as the Frank Lisk mini golf, that at some point you have to make those accessible. And so those are projects that we're currently working on.
Yeah. So that 450,000 is for one bath.
Men and women, so it's actually 2 bathrooms, but yes. It's a lot of rearranging.
There's actually 2 more, Kelly. There'll be 2 more to be done.
2 more?
This one.
How about the landscaping? Is that
So that is landscaping. In addition to, there is a membrane that protects the basement of the government center that when we redo that, we have to check it. We're not sure what the life of that is. Do we know?
It's original, and what she's talking about is the garage level parking extends almost all the way out to Church Street, so you don't realize that when you look at the building, you're actually standing on top of garage level parking out front, and there's a waterproofing membrane underneath the landscape there. It's original to the building, so when we do the landscaping, we're concerned that we may have to address that. And
how that a lot of good? Well, David.
So that's 35 years old. That
it's 1989 or 90. 1990.
Yeah.
So we have replaced the landscaping once, but we did not have to replace the membrane that time, but we will probably be lucky if we get by this time.
If you've noticed, the trees out front are growing through the sides of the planters. It's time.
Any other capital questions before we shift gears to social services?